Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. It's good to see you again. And thanks to Evan Watson for a great job filling in over the last week. Well, here we are, square in the middle of the holiday season, which means many of us are visiting stores to get that special gift. But police know there are also folks visiting the stores to steal. Police have promised to crack down this year. Shoplifting, it's our big story. In 2023, there was a big jump in the number of reported shoplifting incidents in the greater Portland area. I wouldn't be surprised if you personally witnessed it somewhere. And over the last year, our Kyle Aboshi has documented in great detail not only the rampant problem, but also the lack of consequences for the crooks. So with the holidays here, he decided to check back in to see if things are getting better.
We've seen the video time and time again. Brazen thieves stealing merchandise from Portland area retailers, then running out the front door with little or no fear of being arrested or prosecuted. Over the past year, we've explored the issue of retail theft in nearly a dozen reports, speaking with store owners, police, shoppers, prosecutors, and even a convicted thief. So, has the situation improved?
My sense is the situation is slowly improving.
Sergeant Craig Anderson of Portland Police admits it's difficult to measure because shoplifting often goes unreported. Recently, a trade group, the National Retail Federation, has been criticized for using inaccurate organized retail crime figures that helped amplify claims that the U.S. was experiencing a nationwide surge in shoplifting. Portland police data suggests there has been a 45% increase in shoplifting cases in 2023 compared to last year. But again, police and retailers warn those numbers are imprecise.
I would argue that it's underreported because some of these, especially these lower level ones that, let's say a $20 theft, a lot of times the retailers are like, this isn't worth our time, we're not going to even report it.
Over the past year, officers at East Precinct have tackled the problem by conducting retail theft missions. Photos and videos of their shoplifting crackdowns shared on social media. Officers have also worked with store security to ensure their reports are thorough and include surveillance video or still photos.
And so it's been easier with that relationship to put those pieces together to make a better case.
Another big change? In some cases, retailers can now submit theft reports online.
You just hit start new police report.
Previously, if there was a known suspect, retailers had to call the non-emergency line, then wait for an officer to arrive, which was time-consuming. Collectively, these improvements in reporting appear to be helping build stronger cases. Last year, a KGW investigation found Multnomah County is prosecuting less than half of all misdemeanor theft cases in Portland. Since then, prosecution rates for Theft 2 and Theft 3, which represent most shoplifting cases, have gone up. The new data indicates Multnomah County is now on par with others, such as Washington and Clackamas County, in prosecuting retail theft.
I think some of the things that have changed is our relationships and reaching out proactively from our office to retailers.
In July, Multnomah County DA Mike Schmidt and other local leaders announced a new retail theft task force, which includes a dedicated prosecutor.
Having a deputy district attorney on the scene at some of these missions means that we can give legal advice right there as police officers are making their cases.
In January 2024, new laws will take effect in Oregon targeting retail theft. The state legislature passed several bills that increase penalties and step up enforcement. Individual cases can now be added together if thefts were committed against the same or multiple victims in a one-year period. Prosecutors say the new laws will help them go after some of the most prolific thieves, like Austin Bailey. He's now serving prison time in Washington state after hitting big box retailers. Surveillance video shows his aggressive tactics, filling garbage bags with merchandise right in front of employees. Investigators say this type of criminal activity is largely driven by drugs. Often criminals steal so they can get their next fix. In the end, treating one problem, drug addiction, could help cure another. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
The issue of shoplifting, especially organized groups of shoplifters, is a problem that we've heard about nationwide. As you heard Kyle mention, earlier this month, the national lobbying group that supports retailers pulled back its estimate of just how big the problem is. Let's look deeper into that and what went on. The National Retail Federation earlier claimed that half of the $94 billion in store merchandise that vanished in 2021, that half of it was swiped by organized retail criminals who turned around and then sold it online to themselves. So something like $47 billion? Well, no, probably not, for a few reasons. The group retracted that estimate after a media website focused on retail dug into the numbers and punched big holes in them. We think that story is definitely worth your time. The article comes to us from a site called Retail Dive. It's a website dedicated to all things retail, which is probably why they picked that name. If you're interested in such things, they will allow you to sign up for free to newsletters on a variety of topics, from marketing to technology, operations, and much more. I think it is interesting. I signed up today. But this is the story we want to tell you about. It's from a reporter named Daphne Howland. Her biggest takeaway: the retail industry lacks terms that are consistently used by everyone to mean the same thing, and that then leads to confusion and less than accurate numbers. For example, let's take the term shrink. It's often thought of by the public to refer to shoplifting, but this story points out that shrink actually covers three different things. External theft, there on the right side, is 36% of the shrinkage, and that does include organized retail theft. But shrink also includes when employees steal from the company themselves at about 29%. So not shoplifting, but stealing from the people who work there. And another 27% of shrinkage is process control failures and errors. That means things like inventory systems not working the way they should. Those percentages, by the way, come from the National Retail Federation. So you can see how confusing all that is when national groups say the rate of shrinkage is going up. Well, does that mean because internal processes and controls are haywire, or that employees are stealing more, or that shoplifting has increased? Maybe all of the above? It's hard to tell. But the confusion that goes with such a broad term does not keep it from being used. For example, the National Retail Federation, according to this story, estimated that nationwide shrink totaled $93.9 billion in 2021, and the very next year it hit $112.1 billion, which does sound like a big jump, and it's not nothing for sure. But when you take a look at how shrinkage has moved as a percentage of total retail sales by year, which the reporter here did, it's sort of kind of holding steady. Which is not to say that everything's fine and that there's no problem. There definitely is. But hopefully that will have you thinking a bit more critically when you hear national numbers about shrinkage and organized retail theft. Now, at the same time, we do know it's a problem in the greater Portland area. Our cameras have caught people strolling out of the Nike outlet store, for example, carrying as many boxes of shoes as they can, stealing them in broad daylight. We've also seen how stores have changed their hours, changed the layout of their aisles, and also hired security guards that check your receipt as you leave. It's hard to believe the stores would be going through all that, spending all that money, if retail theft and shoplifting was not a major problem. Now it's your turn. Weigh in, will you? First, what do you think about Kyle's story and that prosecution rates for shoplifting in Multnomah County have risen up to our neighbors in Clackamas and Washington counties? And how about the National Retail Federation news? Maybe you're just frustrated about shoplifting in general? Let us know, will you? The email is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Speaking of commerce, there are a lot of people keeping a close eye on the new I-5 bridge project between Portland and Vancouver. And late last week, a major milestone for the effort, the first big federal investment to make it all happen. It's $600 million from something called the Mega Grant Program, which was created by the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Package. The I-5 Bridge Program applied for the grant during the first round and was not selected, but they tried again with an ask of $600 million and will receive exactly that.
This is like a validation that the federal government is serious about being a partner with Oregon and Washington and getting this done. But we know that a bridge is hampering our commerce and growth for the future. So getting this project some federal dollars so the two states can work towards an ultimate solution was really a key priority for us.
Now, many of you may remember the failed Columbia River crossing project. For more than 10 years ago, its goal was to rebuild the bridges, but that effort failed. In fact, it did not get even far enough to get a grant like this one, even though this particular grant program did not exist back then. So the current project, I guess I'm trying to say, is doing much better. And when it comes to a massive project like this, that $600 million is just a piece of the pie. Remember, the project is not just building new twin bridges. They also want to replace the bridge that carries the freeway to Hayden Island from the Oregon mainland and build a new local bridge to the island, extend Max Light Rail across the river, and rebuild or upgrade a bunch of I-5 interchanges in both Oregon and Washington. And that's going to cost a lot of money. The cost estimate as it stands right now, between $5 and $7 billion, yes, with a B, billion dollars. That's total from soup to nuts. Let's call it $6 billion, shall we? The idea is to split the cost between Washington, Oregon, the feds, and you with tolling. The two states have put in around $200 million and each pledged $1 billion more. They expect tolling to cover just over $1 billion in costs, leaving $2.5 billion that would need to come from the feds. The $600 million announced this month is a good start and a lot of money. The bridge team has two other competitive federal grant programs that they're eyeing. They're asking for $1.5 billion from the Federal Highway Administration's Bridge Investment Program and around about $1 billion from the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Investment Grants New Starts Program. These names. That last one is interesting because it's meant for public transportation projects, and the Interstate Bridge team says, well, this project qualifies because it includes the light rail extension to Vancouver, which I know some Vancouverites are not exactly thrilled about.
What we need to do now is get the planning and construction efforts underway. And my sense is that more federal dollars will flow under those applications that the city of Vancouver and others have applied for.
So what's next then? Well, there could be another round of federal funding announced early next year, potentially next month even, in regards to the bridge team's ask for that $1.5 billion. And depending on if and how much they receive from that request, the process for that separate public transportation grant will move forward next summer. Coming up next on The Story, there's a health insurance battle brewing between Providence and Regent's Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's less than a month left for the two sides to reach a deal before Providence providers could be considered out of network for those with Regent's insurance, and that means the price goes way up. What we're hearing from both sides as negotiations continue when The Story returns. The Portland City Council has approved some new job classifications for the new city government, which will take effect next year. But city commissioners are still concerned that some new workers are going to be paid too much. The Charter Transition Team proposed 5 new classifications and salary ranges. There will be a city administrator who could be paid up to $371,000, an assistant city administrator who could be paid up to $210,000, 6 deputy city administrators who will be in charge of the city's new service areas, which are replacing our city bureaus. The team was proposed paying them up to $307,000. They're also proposing adding mayor's aides positions and paying up to $134,000 for the senior aide and up to $115,000 for the not senior aide. 2 weeks ago, commissioners voted down an emergency ordinance that would create the new jobs because they felt like it was too rushed. But last week, they voted again and approved it by a vote of 3-2. The 2 commissioners who voted against it, Dan Ryan and Renee Gonzalez, said they don't like that the deputy city administrators will be earning something like 17 to 18% over market value, meaning that they'll be making more than the people around the country working similar jobs.
When I asked why, the answer was due to compression due to the higher than market salaries of current bureau directors. So we need a better understanding of the whole picture and the total cost. I know we all feel rushed to ensure the city is ready to move on in January 1. I'll continue to show up and do my best to ask good questions to make sure that we get it right. And we all know there'll be many edits as we implement. But I just strongly suggest that we take moments to stop and think about what these new classifications and pay scales might mean for the city, for the future of our city.
All right, then. The commissioner says the transition team told them that the deputies should be earning more than the people reporting to them, and those are the bureau directors. Commissioner Renee Gonzalez said he'd been planning to raise discussions about that and possibly introduce an amendment, but he logged onto the meeting too late and the ordinance had already passed. Mayor Ted Wheeler says he does support the new jobs and the salaries that come with them.
At the end of the day, I feel it's important to listen to the experts who are guiding us on these complex class comp issues. There is always a backstop. If council decides they are overpaying in a certain classification, they could go back and they could change that at a later date. My thinking would be let's wait and see how this turns out.
The new government is expected to cost about $24 million a year to run. That's up from about $10 million a year now. Now to a story about health insurance, as 250,000 Oregonians could lose their coverage at Providence Hospitals in less than a month. It affects those of us who are covered by Regent's Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance. Yep, us, me too. The issue, the hospital system and insurance carrier cannot reach a deal about reimbursement rates. Blair Best explains.
The deadline is closing in on negotiations between a prominent Portland hospital group and health insurance company, leaving the fate of more than 260,000 Oregonians' health care hanging in the balance.
It's just a real shame.
Providence Health and Services is calling for increased reimbursement rates from the insurance company Regent's Blue Cross Blue Shield to keep up with rising healthcare costs and employee wages. If the two companies don't reach an agreement by January 15th, when their contract is up, patients with Regent's insurance would no longer be covered at Providence Hospitals and would have to pay out-of-network rates.
I worry about all the people in this area. There are a lot of people that depend on Providence for their health care.
Like Mary Grebus and her children.
It's a shame that if that doesn't work out, especially my children, if they have emotional or intellectual disabilities, there's a great program that Providence offers that has been our saving grace for our children.
She says her family would be severely impacted if the two healthcare companies don't reach a deal.
It would probably mean we'd have to travel outside of the city to get programs like that. It could also mean that we'd have to pay more than we do right now out of pocket.
Providence says in a statement, quote, "We are working tirelessly to combat rising costs, yet we cannot do it all on our own. Failure to account for these costs affects our ability to adequately pay the dedicated individuals who work in our clinics and hospitals."
Workers won't back down!
Now, this past summer, Providence nurses went on strike, ultimately securing historic wage increases, thus adding to the hospital's financial pressures.
The way the healthcare is set up these days and just the way that's been the last few years, it doesn't surprise me at all when it comes to medical and healthcare stuff.
The goal should be to serve more people, as many people as you possibly can.
Now, we have not heard back from Regents yet, but Providence is hopeful that they'll be able to reach an agreement in the next 4 weeks without disrupting people's care. And we also learned that many people were unaware of these negotiations. So if you are covered by Regents and have questions, you're encouraged to reach out to them directly. In Northeast Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
Thank you, Blair. Coming up next on The Story, we're digging for old. We were inspired by the high winds these past few days, and boy, did we stumble onto something cool and some odd items in the Oregon Historical Society's collection. Think you can guess what these are for? We'll explain when The Story returns.
About 25, that one there. Family friend recommended it, so we decided we'd brave it. The local forecast said it'd be a little windy. We weren't expecting this.
Well, that is a little windy for Crown Point. The wind was howling at Vista House today, funneled through the Columbia Gorge. Our Joe Ranieri was up there acting as a human weather vane for us. Thank you, Joe. He clocked gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, and our natural wind tunnel, the gorge, kind of got us thinking about items related to wind in the Oregon Historical Society's online collection. As you can see, we had more than 360 options to choose from. So we honed in on a few different items that we thought were either cool, wacky, or just plain weird. Here's the first one. Sort of looks like the top of an old lamppost, but believe it or not, this is a foot warmer from the 1860s. The three sides are glass windows, and the back opens up so that you can put a container of charcoal in there. The top is hinged, and the inside is a bed of carpet that sits on top of a piece of metal. The charcoal heats the metal, you put your feet on the carpet, and voila! Civil War era slippers. Next, our friend Smokey the Bear. This is from the 1950s or 60s. It's a snuffer for putting out cigarettes. Forest fire prevention campaigns from that time focused on cigarettes carelessly tossed out of car windows, with the wind then fueling the embers into the wildfire. See how we connected all that? But what makes this snuffer unique, other than Smokey the Bear, is that it's magnetic, meant to be attached to the dashboard inside the car. Everybody smoked as they drove in those days, so without this, or with this, the drivers could just put their cigarettes out while they were on the move. And finally tonight, this is a combination bedroll saddlebag donated to the Historical Society by a woman named Jean Marie Ackerson. She took this with her on a trail ride with her Campfire Girl troop 90 years ago, back in 1933. The group left from Willamina, taking old trails and sleeping in rugged campsites as they crossed the Cascade Range toward the Oregon coast. But just 3 days into their journey, someone showed up at the campsite and told them, "Hey, there's a huge wildfire growing and it's heading your way." Turns out it was the Tillamook burn, and the winds were helping to grow it. They were a hardy crew, though, and they did not turn back. Instead, they detoured around the inferno. At times, the girls could see the flames and feel the heat. They rode through the night and ended up in Beaver, Oregon, in Tillamook County, near the Nestucca River. The Tillamook burn area began that summer in 1933. But it became a series of catastrophic fires in the northern Coast Range that reignited, no kidding, for years until 1951, when the fires finally stopped. A huge restoration project began then. People planted more than 72 million seedlings over the next 20 years. And in 1973, Governor Tom McCall designated the former burn area the Tillamook State Forest. And now you know how that got its name as well. That's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story that never ends. The good stuff is coming your way next. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.